I think one of the things that I learned early on in my own Be Social Change journey is that purpose isn't a job. Purpose is how you live your life.
Welcome to Social Situation, a podcast where we chat with and celebrate leaders challenging the status quo and creating innovations in social impact. Join us for conversations around the current and future state of social impact, the value of closing the gap between for-profits and nonprofits, and the importance of taking values-informed risks in order to create the greatest impact.
I'm Trevor Loke.
And I'm Erin Mobile.
And this is Social Situation.
Hey, Trevor, what's up? How you doing?
I am well, Erin. How are you today?
I am good. Where in the world are you, Trevor? I know you've been traveling a lot for work recently, and I'm always trying to keep up.
Yeah, I'm back home in Vancouver where it is raining. And yeah, I was in Calgary and Toronto for a couple of projects, one for my business and another one where we're bringing together some social impact professionals from around Canada to meet with each other, do some knowledge exchange, just have a cocktail and have a conversation. So it's been a lot of fun helping get that off the ground in Toronto and now bringing that to Vancouver.
That's amazing. I wish I lived in Canada so I could attend all of these events and just finally meet you in person, but that'll happen one of these days, right?
Exactly. And yeah, I wonder who will cross the border first. I think that's going to be
Totally.
that's the
I
challenge.
know.
And I'm definitely drawn to, as I look outside, I am thinking about the sunny weather of California and other
Yeah.
places. So although would love to come to New York, it's been a long time since I've been there, and it's such a magical city.
We will make it happen one of these days. I love Vancouver, as you know, having visited a few times. So maybe I'll be out your way. But yeah, can't wait till that happens.
So we have a friend of yours coming on the show today that I'm really excited to chat with. Have heard a lot about. Actually, does a lot of events that I think have inspired us around bringing social impact professionals together. So I think that's going to be such an exciting conversation today. And I know, yeah, this is a close friend of yours.
Yeah, Jenn Lishansky, she is amazing. She co-runs an organization called Be Social Change, which is based out of New York City, but now operates globally, given that we live in such a virtual world. And she'll share more about the mission, but essentially it's this incredible community network of change makers, of social impact practitioners, of people who are passionate about social impact in one way or another. And they plan amazing events, both in person and virtual, and really convene folks across all areas of social impact, which is so great.
I love that. And yeah, being able to, pass down knowledge to a new generation of people who are, going to come into the field and help to create the impact within their own organizations or as social entrepreneurs or, however that shows up for them in their day-to-day life. Yeah, it's really, really exciting work and so necessary with everything that we're facing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been an amazing opportunity, and I'm really excited for you to meet Jenn. I think you'll be really inspired by the work that she does and her journey into the social impact space and kind of what keeps her going. So, without further ado, should we jump right in?
Let's do it.
Looking to make an impact, but not sure where to start? Elevate Social Impact, a purpose-driven consulting and coaching practice, helps companies develop their CSR strategies and embed a culture of giving back into their brand. And they guide individuals looking for fulfilling careers in social impact. Whether you're wanting to grow your company's give back efforts or find values alignment and make a greater difference through your work, Elevate Social Impact is excited to equip you with the knowledge, resources, and tools that you need to get started. Check out elevatesocialimpact.com today to learn more. All right, it's time for Let's Get Social.
Every week, we choose a topic of focus and bring on guests to join us. Today's topic, building and being part of an impact community.
And to join us, we're inviting fellow social entrepreneur, podcaster, changemaker, and connector and motivator, Jenn Lishansky.
Jenn contributes to the world by helping people connect with their greatest talents and joys, and then pursue them. Her coaching is grounded in motivational interviewing, strong and emotionally intelligent support, and a lifelong study of mindfulness. When she's not coaching, She is the Chief Engagement Officer for Be Social Change. She identifies ways to support organizations in the social impact space by leveraging Be Social Change's resources and community. Previously, Jenn has been a youth delegate to the United Nations representing the Federation of Business and Professional Women. In 2015, she founded her own business, teaching meditation to groups around New York City, including Columbia University, Facebook, the NASDAQ, Journey Meditation, as well as consulting on wellness curricula. Please welcome Jenn Lishansky.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't tell you how happy I am to be here.
Thank you. We are so excited to have this chat with you. And we're just going to jump right in. So, Jenn, as we were kind of chatting before this recording today, you shared that you contribute to the world by helping people connect with their greatest talents and joys, which is so awesome. And I'd love if you could share a little bit more about that.
Absolutely. When it comes to the work that we do at Be Social Change, it's all about helping people figure out how they can contribute to the world through different careers. When it comes to the work that I do as a coach, it's all about helping people get in touch with their own unique sparks, the things that make them feel alive, their own joys, as well as the talents that they've been given and how they can best employ those in any context, whether it's work or personally or, volunteering or whatever it could be, in order to contribute to the world. So I found out a long time ago that my own kind of personal guiding value is contribution. And because of that, I've been very fortunate to meet and get to know a lot of people for whom that's also their primary value. And for that reason, it's been a great joy for myself to be able to work with people in that capacity and dive into people's souls and get to know them and get to hear a little bit more about what lights them up.
I love that, Jenn. I feel like that connectivity, that community building that you are doing is just more vital now than ever, especially as we all sit behind screens and, we're not as much in person as we used to be. And you do such a beautiful job at bringing people together around shared values and contributing all of your skills to the world. So we're really excited to hear more about you today and all that you're up to.
Thanks, Erin. And it's just been such a joy being in community with you too, and being able to connect with you and learn more about your work. And Trevor, same. It's been brief, but it's been awesome.
No, I know we don't know each other very well, Jenn, but this is such a pleasure to be able to meet you for the first time. And I mean, you're a legend based on what Erin tells me in the community. So this is, I feel very honored to be able to be here with you today. So, actually, one of the things that Erin shared with me is, you've got a great organization at Be Social Change. You've also got a podcast. Can you just share with us a little bit about the journey that you're on and what you've been up to at both of those projects?
I'll give you a tiny bit of backstory for this journey, which is that I worked in nonprofits, basically from the word go. Even before I graduated college, I was all about nonprofits. I wanted to contribute. I knew that much. And I thought that was going to be the best way for me to do so. I burned myself out in one nonprofit, found another nonprofit and was like, oh, things are not as optimally functioning as they could. What's happening? And I found that I had this real calling to sort of want to support the nonprofit sector, given all of its challenges, all of its pressures and constraints, to be as successful in each organization's mission as I could help them be. So I found Be Social Change, which at the time was a meetup group in New York City. And I met the founder, Marco Salazar, and basically was like, I want to do anything I can to support. And we started working together behind the scenes. And then in 2019, I started working full-time with the organization, growing partnerships and programming. And what I realized was that through Be Social Change, not only are we able to provide the professional development to help nonprofits and socially conscious businesses, to help their employees really build the skills that they need to make their greatest impact, but we're also able to provide the connections. So through networking events, panels, informal connecting that we would do behind the scenes, we were able to bring together people who wouldn't otherwise be meeting and facilitate partnerships, collaborations, new employees, hiring, whatever it could be. There was a pandemic in 2020. I don't know if you heard about it. But basically, we, like everyone else in the world, brought our content online. And because of that, we grew from a very organic New York City social impact hub into an organization that was doing networking with people around the world. I think at one point we had 10 different time zones present with us on one networking call. It was so exciting and really cool. And what we decided was that continuing to bring people together, especially in the midst of the pandemic, when connection was extra vital and extra important, but also when social impact work was extra vital and extra important, was paramount to the work that we wanted to do. And we've sort of been continuing to listen to our community as time has progressed, and saw that not only were they interested in networking, but they were still interested in kind of some of that professional development that we'd been delivering in person. And so instead of asking people to spend another hour on Zoom, what we did is we launched a podcast, the Be Social Change podcast, in order to best provide some of the content that they would have been accessing through panels or through professional development in a singular kind of 1 hour audio listen whenever you can format.
That's so awesome, Jenn. I know we were talking before this about how I was checking out your new podcast, which is so great. Definitely learning a lot from you as we embark on this podcast journey. And I really like how you shared your origin story of how you came into Be Social Change in the early days and how it has grown and evolved and shifted with the times ever since. And I know that you were really there at the beginning. And I'm curious if you can speak to your entrepreneurship journey and what that's been like. Trevor and I both started our own businesses in the past few years, and would love to hear any wisdom that you can share with others that are on that journey themselves.
Wow. I mean, first of all, I feel like I learn from Erin. I learn from you all the time. And Trevor, I'm already learning from OrgMatch and the work that you're doing. So I'd say that one of the key things that I found in entrepreneurship is, for me, I have to learn from other people who are doing it. Marcos has been one of my greatest mentors in that journey because he started Be Social Change from scratch. Just has that like extra vitality when it comes to building things. And that's been really complimentary, is to find an entrepreneurial partner who's really, supportive and complements some of the things that I don't enjoy doing and he does. So it's been great that way. When it comes to entrepreneurship, I will say that when I was in nonprofits that weren't working, I was bored and dissatisfied. So I actually started my own organization to do wellness in organizations, schools, and nonprofits, to help people basically maintain their own sense of well-being. And that was my first entrepreneurial venture and a really great experience to figure out, you can have the best of ideas, but if you can't represent it well, or if you're not networked into specific communities, it's going to be hard to spread. So one of the first lessons that I learned that continues to be one of the most important for me is building through partnerships and making solid relationships that are not just based off of transactional, like, hey, you can do this for me and I can do this for you, but are based off of solid respect, shared values, interests, whatever it is that brings people together, being able to call upon that and make partnerships and relationships that are lasting. So some of my initial partners from that entrepreneurial venture many years ago, I don't like many years ago, are still friends and still people who I follow their careers today. And I'm in awe of what they're doing and accomplishing. So I'd say that when it comes to entrepreneurship, similar to finding your complementary partner, if you want to go that route of starting a business with someone else or starting a podcast with someone else, for me, it was also finding partners with whom I could grow the work, I could grow the reach of my own idea, I could find other avenues for delivering the services I wanted to, and so forth. And that still remains true at Be Social Change. Everything we do, we try to do in partnership. When it comes to hosting events, we always choose at least 5 partners who we want to bring our communities together, because we know that our community is awesome. We see other people's communities and we say, there's a lot of values overlap. There's a lot of work that we could do together. Let's bring people together and see what happens when they collide. When, as Marcos likes to say, when we accelerate serendipity. And so partnerships for me is my major entrepreneurship lesson. When it also comes to being an entrepreneur, one thing that I found is I work with a lot of people who are starting their own businesses. And there's sort of one mold that we read most about when it comes to entrepreneurship. It's like that person who's just so nose to the grindstone, so driven by the desire to scale and to 10x their companies and so forth. And what's been really exciting for me is working with people and being able to say, part of the joy of being an entrepreneur is that you get to do things a little bit your own way. And this gets to be an expression of your own joys and talents, which means that you don't have to break your back making this happen. In fact, you can build something that's the best reflection of you and what you want. And if that's 10xing a company, great. However, I find for most people, it's actually living a life where they get to have balance and they get to both do work that they absolutely enjoy and love while also exploring other avenues for themselves and living a rich life and making warm connections, being a family person, whatever it could be. So I love that about sort of the shifting ecosystem of entrepreneurship that I've been fortunate to see. I wonder if you all have seen that too, that there's a little bit of a consciousness shift around entrepreneurship.
I love how you spoke about relationships and getting away from the transactional nature of relationships that are so common and focusing on, what do those, deep long-term partnerships and relationships look like? And I'm wondering, hosting so many different types of networking opportunities for people, do you see any sort of trends emerging or any sort of like best or cool ways that people are forming relationships?
Taking one moment to think about it, I think what I'd say is especially the pandemic sort of pulled back the curtain for people in a big way. So that some of the robotic networking that I think a lot of us have experienced, where it's like, hi, my name is so and so, and this is what I do. What do you do? What can we do together? Kind of that feels a little bit inauthentic, was blown apart, where people were all of a sudden, in their homes networking virtually, seeing pets and babies and family members crawl into the room, whatever it could be. And it created the space for people to be a little bit more vulnerable or open or authentic. And that's a really cool trend. Is I hope that that's continuing, and I've sort of seen it as such, where in person people are bonding, yes, about the type of work that they're doing and the ways in which they're contributing to the world, but they're also bonding about like, hey, I make ice cream on the side. I was one of those like sourdough bakers through the pandemic, and I'm still on it. Whatever it could be, and people are bringing more of their own personal joys into those relationships, which is really beneficial because you can have a great professional relationship where you're just bonded around the work that you're doing. And simultaneously, some of the most memorable parts of how we work with people are their personal qualities or their personal joys. And being able to ask about that and track that too, recognizing that none of us are work robots. I think when it comes to the networking that I most enjoy, it really comes down to like, hey, is this person lit up about something in the world? It doesn't have to be their work. It could be anything. But are they lit up about something in the world in a way that is enticing to me and something I want to support, whether that's just by making a connection or referring them to a cool organization or just listening and providing that visibility of like, this is really awesome. You can do this. So I think finding the ways in which people are showing up with their own authenticity or their own joys is definitely a great trend.
That's super insightful, Jen. And yes, I've been loving seeing that on my kind of own entrepreneurship journey and just my journey since COVID as a professional, right? That we can be in a professional space and talk about our lives and we don't have to compartmentalize like I am my work self and now I'm my personal self and keep those things separate. Even on LinkedIn, I see so much content now around who we are as whole human people, that we are multifaceted. So I love what you've shared there. And I'm curious too, from your standpoint of running this amazing organization and convening so many people globally, like what are people looking for in the social impact space? Why are they coming to Be Social Change? I'm sure there are many reasons, and I'd love if you could share some of those with us.
When it comes to sort of what people are looking for in social impact, I think for most people, they're in some way awake to the challenges that we're facing, whether they're socially or whether they're environmentally. People are seeing the pressures that are building and building towards a future that they're not excited about and wanting to contribute in some capacity or wanting to change the outcomes. And so what I've seen or felt is that people are recognizing that the way they spend their time, the most valuable asset they have, could be going towards in some way impacting the issues that they care about. I think that's a really exciting trend. The Great Resignation, I think, was a big part of awakening people to like, hey, I don't have to be spending my time doing something that isn't in alignment with what I care about or that's causing damage to the world or others in ways that I'm not on board with. And so when it comes to sort of finding their way into social impact careers, one of the key things people are seeking is like, will this make a difference? Will I be able to go to sleep at night a little bit happier or a little bit more fulfilled? Can I tell my kids what I'm doing with pride and with joy? And I think that those are all really powerful aspects of the shift that we're in right now. When it comes to be social change, we really see that the most important thing that we can provide is a space for people to connect. Because it's one thing to have the idea like, I want to contribute to the world. I want to do something good. Where do I get started? Everybody around me is like, in their corporate heads down mode. And I would just love to find somebody who can bring me a little bit of inspiration or who knows an organization that's doing something I'm super passionate about. And so the space and capacity to connect and build community is what we offer through Be Social Change. And it is, for me, the thing I'm most passionate about. Again, going to relationships, I am very much all about like, how do you do more through doing stuff with other people? And that means providing space for other people to explore that, providing sort of an informal space for people to just connect and see what magic arises. I'm always kind of surprised by what occurs. We definitely have a couple of like marriages that we've initiated by just bringing people together. And that always gets me really excited. So things like that, it's like, you never know what's going to happen when you bring people who really want to do something and who are awake to their own capacity to contribute together in the same space.
I actually want to share a memory from your recent summer connector event because I think it so beautifully demonstrates your commitment to building connections and community. I remember we were in one of the facilitated networking sessions, and there was an individual who had the guts to kind of get on the mic and share what he was looking for, and it was a new role in the kind of tech for good space. And I remember you said, is there anyone in the room that has connections? I believe he was early career. He may have experienced a recent layoff. And then lots of people raised their hand, and you made sure that they saw each other and then they connected. And he and I actually connected after the event as well. And I'm just so grateful that you were bringing people together in so many different ways, including in that way you're breaking down barriers and making people feel comfortable sharing, what they are in need of, but also what they can provide support on. I think that's really powerful.
Oh, Erin, thanks so much for sharing that. Sometimes those events go by so fast, I don't take the time to like remember everything that happens. So it's really cool to hear that. And I think what you're describing too is like, none of us can do this work alone. We all need somebody. And just the idea of removing barriers is something that really, really resonates. And I love that. Thank you.
I love that you're bringing, not just people together on work, but in real life partnership like marriage, like that. I have to ask, can you share a story about the types of things that you're seeing people working on together as a result of coming together or maybe meeting in sort of like a random or uncommon sort of way?
Yes. Okay. I love this question. There's like 10 examples that rush to my mind. So I'm going to start with one or two. One that I always get really excited about is partnerships in between organizations, because it might be really easy to work with another individual, but when you start bringing in an organization, there's more components. Oftentimes there's legal contracts, there's things like that. To me, when an organization finds like a worthwhile partner to actually like invest in all of that time that goes into building the foundation for a partnership, it's really exciting. So I know of from our most recent summer connector that Erin was just talking about, there's two nonprofits that are now actually working together, which I don't know how familiar everyone is with the nonprofit space, but that's a huge victory. Nonprofits are oftentimes like in my own silo. If I'm working with someone else, it means I'm having a funding competitor, all these issues that are not actually conducive to social change, but are part of the unfortunate like system of how nonprofits have been set up in this country. It gets really, really exciting. So there's two like youth education nonprofits that are doing programming together in schools. And I'm super psyched about that one. I was really thrilled to learn about it. Then I think some of the other partnerships that happen is increasingly the entrepreneurial space and also like tech for good, philanthropy ventures. There's an increasing awareness of business as a potential tool to use for social impact. And because of that, we're finding more and more funders and people who have the capacity to like start accelerators or who have incubators running are coming to our events and saying like, hey, we're open, our doors are open, our applications are open, come and find out more. And because of that, there's many different organizations or individual entrepreneurs who are finding the funding that they need. And we all know that that's no small thing. Funding is what allows an organization to do what it needs to do. And so that's been a really exciting trend as well. I think when we bring people together, we sometimes like want to have the idea, well, like X number of people are going to get hired, and this is going to be what it is going to be. But very sweetly, people will share anecdotes with us after the fact. And those anecdotes are always so much richer than like the data that we could try and collect, but it's also really tricky to collect because the timelines are oftentimes skewed, where it's like hiring doesn't happen the day after an event, it happens several months. So all of that is to say, it gets really exciting to hear some of the anecdotes that we're hearing, and especially around partnerships and funding.
That's so great to hear. So, so much to be proud of in terms of how you've brought people and organizations together. And who knows, someone could have met at an event a year ago, and maybe that will be an opportunity 6 months from now. So you're definitely planting the seed for so many fruitful relationships, which is awesome to hear. And I want to switch gears for a second, Jenn, because I know that you do a lot of coaching as well for folks that are either, making moves within the social impact space or are looking to grow in the social impact space, or maybe even new to this landscape. And I'm curious what advice you would give to someone who is in transition in their career, maybe is evolving in some way. Any pieces of wisdom that you can share for those folks? Because I know navigating a job search is not easy, especially now.
Oh, you can say that again for sure. I think that the number one key piece of wisdom that I often encourage people who are starting out on a job search to employ is to get clarity. A lot of people think I'm going to do social impact work, and that just means that I need a job for good, like that's doing some sort of good in the world. So I'm going to apply to 100 organizations a day, and I'm going to see which ones stick. And it's sort of, no, it is a completely ineffective strategy, unfortunately, where most of the time people don't realize that sending in cold applications just doesn't work. LinkedIn always releases a study that says 85% of jobs are filled by people who have networked connections into those jobs, which means only 15% come around by cold application. Throwing things at the wall and hoping that something sticks is not a great strategy. Getting clarity on like what issue most enlivens you. What are the tasks that you would enjoy spending your time doing? What are the important aspects of an organizational culture that you really want to seek out in your next org? These are all really important questions to get clear on before you begin even the application process. And people are always like, oh, no, like I need to be applying. It's like, actually get clear on what it is that you want. And then even before you apply, meet people who are working in those types of organizations that you think you'd like. Test it by asking them questions and finding out if you could really see yourself there. Clarity sort of makes it a whole lot easier to do all of the most important parts of a job search, like networking, like personal branding, like sending out your applications. I'll say, I use this analogy a lot, that a lot of people don't want to like, what's the term? Tunnel themselves in or like niche their way down because they're afraid that they're going to miss out on opportunities. And it's sort of like standing under a waterfall with your arms like wide open and your hands wide open. You can't catch any water. It's only until you like cup your hands that you're actually able to catch any water. So getting really narrow and specific, people are afraid of doing, and it's the most important and essential thing that you can do. If I can just share one quick anecdote. There was one month where I was working with two people, one of whom was really committed to the clarity path, and the other of whom was like, effectiveness for me is sending out 100 applications a day. I kid you not. I get that number from her. And I was like, oh, that sounds terrible, but whatever. We started working together and quickly stopped that strategy. And the person who was really interested in clarity, she took the time, she took about a month and a half to figure out what were the organizations that she was most excited by and what were the tasks or roles that she could fulfill. She only sent in 3 job applications. She got interviews. She got to the final round interviews for every single one of those jobs and was offered several of them. The other person, I think, sent in 100 applications a day and got 2 or 3 interviews, none of which really progressed. So that clarity almost also acts as a magnet for the people who are doing the hiring. They're like, this person is interested in the work. They're passionate about it. They clearly have tailored their careers to getting to where we could help them grow next. And so I'll just say that clarity piece is so essential.
That's awesome. And kind of wanting to flip that on its head a little bit. Like there's a lot of folks who they're in their perfect job, or they're, busy with their day to day, and they're wondering, like, how do I make an impact outside of the 9 to 5? How do I, show up on the weekends or in the evenings and still make an impact? And I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that.
Absolutely. I think that more and more, this is such a good question. I'm like trying to pace myself here because I get really excited about it. More and more people are recognizing that what they're doing for work is just a portion of impact, as you're saying. People are seeing that it's actually really impactful for me to show up as a community member, as a family member, to be of support to someone I know who's sick, or someone I know who could use an extra hand, or an extra, hug, whatever it could be. And people are seeing that the connectedness that we have in our societies is really needs to be rebuilt in a lot of ways. And so people are becoming involved in local politics or organizing local community events, whatever it could be. People are taking forward that action, and it's really exciting to see. I think one of the things that I learned early on in my own Be Social Change journey is that purpose isn't a job. Purpose is how you live your life. And so for people to find multiple avenues of how they enact their values, or how they enact what's most important to them, is a great way of living. You could be working in a job, a social impact job that you know is making a difference, and still not feel fulfilled if you don't have other areas of your life that are also expressions of your values. Because a job at the end of the day is how we spend a lot of our time, but not all of our time. And so I get excited by some of the stories I'm hearing, people running for local office, or just, showing up and being an extra great auntie or uncle, or, whatever it could be. And I think that more and more that's an exciting pathway, partially because it also recognizes that not all forms of impact that we've grown up with are necessarily all that positive. A lot of the impact that we've seen are replicating, post-colonial organizational systems, especially within the nonprofit sector. People are coming to terms and really recognizing that. Within socially conscious business, people are still recognizing that consumerism and feeding into that isn't going to be the essential change that we need for our environmental issues. And so people are realizing that impact isn't just about impact needs to be done as consciously and clearly and carefully as possible. And that part of our greatest impact is what we mean to the people in our lives. And that just for me is the best thing.
That's so beautifully said, Jen. I really love what you said, that purpose isn't a job. Purpose is how we live our life. And I really appreciate you sharing ideas for how people can be impactful in their day to day if their job isn't a quote, typical social impact job. A lot of folks love what they're doing, and it might not be in the social impact sector, and that's great. But there are so many other ways that we can be good humans and good citizens and show up for our community and our neighbors, and really, infuse those values of impact both in our personal lives and our professional. So thank you so much for sharing that. And kind of on that note, earlier you were talking about balance, right? And how work now has changed, especially post COVID, and how that is such an important thing to have that balance, that from your working life and your personal life, and how there's some blurred lines now, which many of us think are for the better, which is awesome. So I'd love to ask you, how do you make time for your self-care and restoration, given all that you're doing? I know you're doing so much. And what recharges your batteries?
Oh, it's a great question. I will just be very upfront and say that for me, part of my entrepreneurial joy is not having set work hours like 9 to 5. That part of my joy is being able to take each day as it authentically comes. And if I wake up one morning and I'm having a really hard time in the morning, okay, take some extra time, go for a walk, do what I need to do in order to become alive and impassioned again. So that is for me a really great joy of entrepreneurialism. I know that's not available to everybody. And for that reason, kind of, I always encourage people, well, if you can do routines, that's great. If you can find one pillar practice that makes you feel ready for whatever's coming your way, that's great. For me, that's often been meditation in my life. I have hippie parents who introduced me to meditation as a child. And so that's been my kind of through practice throughout time. And when it comes to what care really means for me, part of it is recognizing that the more I push myself, the less returns I get. If I'm exhausted and I'm pushing myself, sometimes I just have to do it, right? There's a deadline, there's something coming up. But oftentimes what I find is when I push myself, I step out of my creative state. I step out of the state where I'm like most energized by the work. And so I'll just go for a walk, or I'll take a break, or I'll call a loved one. I'll call my niece or my nephew. And then it allows me to do that reset and that zooming back out to remember why I'm doing what I'm doing, to be able to actually be really productive when I'm sitting at my computer. I do email for like max 2.5 hours every day, because beyond that, it's just not productive. I'm not able to communicate what I need to. I'm not able to be who I need to be. And so I love being able to have the flexibility and also have the space where I don't have to push myself. Instead, I can work with my own time and my own schedule. Quick shout out. I'm reading a book right now called Saving Time by Jenny Odell. Highly, highly recommend, because it's really affirming a lot of this like idea of where our relationship to time comes from.
That's so fantastic. I'm, taking notes and thinking, okay, I've really got to get back into meditation, because I fully agree. I think just like taking those pauses throughout the day, I'm wondering, like, okay, there's the short term we're thinking about, how do we sort of do the day to day, but for you, you talk a lot about legacy and what's the impact you want to have long term. And I'm wondering, what do you want people to remember when they hear your name, and how does that show up in your work?
Oh, it's such a sweet question that I actually don't take enough time to answer on my own often enough. So I really appreciate being asked. I think for me, what I would love as far as the impact that I can best create in the world, or what I want people to think of when they think of me, is to think of being heart-led. At the end of the day, all this talk about relationship building and connection and finding joy and sparks is about helping people connect to their hearts. And so to support people in feeling connected to their hearts and in finding that expression through whatever action is going to bring them closest to that, be it their work or be it whatever they do on the out, how they live their life. It's such a beautiful question. I think I also want to take more time and actually like do some of the exercises that I recommend to people actually for myself here. So thank you so much, Trevor, for that inspiration.
I love that. I feel like we're all kind of constantly in evolution in terms of how we would answer that too, right? And it is a big question. So I'm going to ask you a slightly smaller question, not so much your legacy for your entire life or your entire career, but something we like to ask all of our guests is, where do you see yourself in 10 years? And what type of impact are you making? And where is Be Social Change in 10 years?
Great question. So in 10 years, I'm really excited about building a family and like having that be part of how I can help somebody feel heartful, is by doing that with my own children. I think when it comes to Be Social Change in 10 years, one of our goals is to continue to be a dynamic community. So always holding that space for people to come together, but also having it be responsive to what is most important for people. Are there ways in which we can better serve people? Are there facilitated networking questions that we can ask differently? So having it be a responsive, dynamic community that continues to grow, whether that's because the interest in social impact continues to grow, whether that's because people recognize that there's more and more ways of embodying change in the world. We want Be Social Change to be continue to be a go-to place for people to convene, come together, find inspiration, find partnership. That's truly my vision for Be Social Change in 10 years. I will say it will be awesome if we can continue to grow the coaching team and services that we have for people, so that more and more people can access these social impact careers. I'll be really excited if our podcast is still up and thriving in 10 years. And I also think it'll be really exciting to see some of the terms that 10 years ago were sort of foreign to people, like CSR, corporate social responsibility. 10 years ago, that wasn't really a popular term. Even social impact was like, oh, what are we talking about? And social enterprises, all these terms that are now becoming common vernacular. I can't wait to see in 10 years how that's going to have changed, and what terms and understandings we currently have that can be spread wider and wider into the ethos.
Well, Jen, that's really beautifully said, and I think that's a really good note to end things on for today. I want to thank you so much for taking the time to be with Erin and I, to answer these questions, to show up heart-led, as you say. And anything else you want to share in terms of how people can learn about you or what you're working on?
Check us out on besocialchange.com and follow us on LinkedIn too. So we're posting a lot of app updates both on our Be Social Change page as well as on my personal page, which is Jenn Lishansky.
Fantastic. Well, Jenn Lishansky is the Chief Engagement Officer of Be Social Change and the co-host of the Be Social Change podcast. Go to besocialchange.com to learn more, and please follow on LinkedIn. $60 billion is being given by companies to nonprofits in 2024 to maximize regulatory benefits and manage reputation for employees and customers. Some companies are struggling. The rest are using OrgMatch because OrgMatch optimizes this process, saving time and money required in due diligence, research, and administration, while increasing confidence in the impact and investment earned. That's why community investment teams around the world are trusting OrgMatch to get the job done. Find out for yourself by going to orgmatch.com. That's orgmatch.com to get started now for free.
Okay, Trevor, it's that time of the show where we share what's on our mind. So I would love to hear what you've been thinking about this week.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about ESG. And I mean, haven't we all been thinking a lot about ESG this year? But specifically for companies and, whether companies are going to be, leaning into this space or moving out of it. And I certainly hear folks on both sides, but I'm very bullish on ESG. And so I have a prediction. And I predict that we are going to see 90% adoption among Fortune 500 companies having ESG departments and functions. And I think the reason for this is that, companies are realizing that when they articulate what they stand for and their values clearly to customers, that customers really like it and understand it. And people want to know that they're putting money to the purpose and values that they believe in. And so today, I think it's important for companies to state what their values are, what they believe in, and make it really easy for the consumers to understand that. I think companies that move away from this or depend on traditional marketing sources are going to find that their ability to grow is diminished as a result of not having those clearly articulated values. And so that's why, Erin, my prediction is we see 90% threshold passed among Fortune 500 in the ESG space.
Love that, Trevor. I feel like that's definitely something I've been thinking about as well, and really appreciate you putting a number to your prediction. That's super helpful. And I am in alignment on that. It's been really exciting to see so much growth in terms of the focus and dedication and commitment to ESG among major corporations and really companies of all sizes. I think it's not necessarily a nice to have anymore. It's a need to have. There's an expectation that companies are committing to building out their CSR practices, their ESG practices. I know it goes by so many names across different sectors, but really making a commitment to serving people and the planet and running values aligned companies that are grounded in purpose.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, when companies hear terms like ESG, there are some folks who think, oh, we need to be doing, absolutely everything or solving every problem. And I think, what I'm finding, at least the companies that are really, being quite successful in their ESG strategies are taking the focus where their expertise, where their clients and where their employees really want to be spending their time making a difference and sort of knowing how they fit into a broader ecosystem of other companies and players doing the work. So, here's to companies continuing to focus in on the ESG components that they're going to really help move the needle for and hopefully help some big societal problems. But Erin, that's my prediction. That's where my head is at. I would love to know what you've been thinking about for the past week.
Thanks, Trevor. Yeah, actually, very similarly, I've been thinking a lot about ESG and about, the role that it plays in companies, as well as for job seekers that are wanting to join this, ever evolving and really exciting and growing space. So, as you know, part of my work is coaching mid-career professionals that want to have fulfilling and impactful jobs in the broader social impact space. And so much of what these job seekers are looking for is that values alignment that you were mentioning before. It's, their ability to make a difference through their work and, really see from their employer that they are committing to impact and sustainability. And so, we are seeing so many changes in the social impact space as we speak. And my prediction is that in the next 10 years, we won't necessarily be looking for social impact or CSR or ESG jobs, but instead we'll be looking for jobs and expecting that the company we're pursuing has a sense of purpose, a commitment to serving people and the planet, and a focus on impact baked into its brand, its DNA. Someone told me that you don't have to work in social impact to be impactful. And that really resonates. I really believe that down the road, social impact will be less siloed into its own team or department, and it will be more of an expected foundation of a company, touching and involving every department even more than it is now. So something I've been thinking about a lot as well is maybe there won't be as much of a need for social impact career coaching down the road. Who knows? We shall see.
I love that, Erin, and just the idea that everyone can come into a company with their own idea of how they want to make an impact is so powerful. And I hope that this can be a topic that we're not waiting for people to enter companies to start thinking about, but hopefully it's something we can actually start teaching people in school so that they can start thinking about the type of impact they want to have in their lives in and outside of work.
Absolutely. It won't necessarily be a space that we're trying to figure out how to break into, but it will be kind of the underpinning to all that we do. It will be expected as part of our jobs that we are focusing on impact and the broader world around us. And there will be standards that, companies have to meet that employees are well aware of. When you see benefits written on a job description, hopefully within there, you'll see all of the great things that company is doing to serve its employees, to serve the greater community, the planet, and so forth. So certainly, I think there's a lot of evolution happening here, as you and I have both just shared and reflected upon. And I'll be really excited to see where this space goes in 2024 per your prediction and 10 years or so from now per mine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like the view you're taking on yours of having 10 years for the prediction. If I'm wrong next year, please don't hold it against me. I'll just have to keep refining it.
I think I'm just a little bit more cautious, but who knows? Could be less than 10 years. We will see. It's definitely an ever-changing space. It feels like almost daily, with all of the evolutions we're seeing, but definitely look forward to seeing what happens in 2024 and beyond. So thanks so much for sharing your prediction, Trevor. That was great to hear.
Social Situation is co-hosted by me, Trevor Loke, the amazing Erin Mogul, and is presented by Elevate Social Impact and OrgMatch. Editing is by Tristan Thompson, with production support by Mark Rathgaber. New episodes are released on the second Thursday of each month. You can visit socialsituationpodcast.com to learn more or subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.